Salve! Today's video will be about the Roman dating system. We're talking about like actual dates, like dates and years with this video. We're not talking about like dating, like Cornelia and Valerius dating. We're not talking about that. We're talking about actual physical dates, like April 15th. Let's have a little introduction into the Roman date system. Instead of counting with actual days like April 15th or December 31st, dates like that, what they would do is that they would count the number of days until a fixed point. The Romans had 3 fixed points in their calendar: the calends, the nones, and the ides. The calends always fell on the first of every month. That was always the beginning of every month. The nones was either the 5th or the 7th of every month, and the ides was either the 13th or the 15th of every month. Normally, the nones and the ides fell on those earlier dates, the 5th and the 13th, respectively. However, there are 4 months out of the year, which I call the Mama Joe months, where they fall on the later dates, the 7th and the 15th. So let's take a deeper dive into those months, because they're kind of arbitrary, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about them and help you remember them. So Mama Joe is a mnemonic that stands for March, May, July, and October. These are the months where the nones falls on the 7th and the ides fall on the 15th. I think that these are the more famous ides because, as we know, Cave idibus Martibus, beware the ides of March, when Caesar was assassinated. The other fixed point, the calends, it will always fall on the 1st. It's always the start of every month. So there are a couple different ways you can remember these months. You can just call them the Mama Joe months, which I will do for this video. Another one is a rhyme: March, October, July, and May. The ides fall on the 15th day. And then there are a couple of other ways, which is Mama makes orange juice or Mama makes orange Julius's. Whichever one you prefer. I made Mama makes orange Julius's, so it'd make me very happy if people started to say that. I also think it's actually good because it reminds you that it's July and not June. So whatever works for you, just make sure that you can remember those months. As I've just explained, what the Romans would do is that they would take the day that they were on and they would count the number of days until one of the 3 fixed points, the calends, the nones, or the ides, popped up. So let's go a little bit more into how the Romans count their days. The Romans would count their days inclusively. Here's an example of what I mean. Let's take the month of September. Here are all the days in September, and I have the calends, the nones, and the ides circled on the 1st, 5th, and 13th, respectively. Let's just take September 8th, and I wanted to count the days between September 8th and September 13th. So at the bottom there, those are all the days: the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. Here's what I mean about the inclusive counting. You start on the day that you are currently on. So the 8th, even though I'm already on that day, that would be the first day. And then I would count all the way to the 13th, and then I would also include that day because I have to include the date that I start on and the date that I end on. So all told, that is 6 days. If I was a Roman, I would say that there are 6 days before the ides of September if today was September 8th. Let's have some practice with this. If I was a Roman, I would say that there are X number of days before one of the fixed points. That's the construction that they use to talk about their days. So here's an example, a day. I have December 7th here. So December 7th, the ides of December would be my next fixed point. So that's the 13th. We start counting with the 7th as number 1, to the December 8th, then the 9th, then the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, and then the 13th. All told, that means that there would be 7 days before the December ides. So here I have 3 more days: September 3rd, May 9th, and July 16th. Let's count the number of days before one of the next set points. Take a second, pause the video, try and work it out on your own. Let's start with the first example, September 3rd. September is not one of the later nones months, so the nones will be on the 5th. So we start on the 3rd, we count that as the first day, then the 4th, and then we're on the 5th. We're already at the nones. All told, that is 3 days, so we would say that there are 3 days before the September nones. Now let's move to May 9th. May is one of the Mama Joe months, so it has a later Ides on the 15th. So we start on the 9th, we count that as our first one, then the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. All told, those are 7 days. So we would say that there are 7 days before the May Ides if this was May 9th. Lastly, we get to July 16th. This one is past the nones and the Ides, so we have to go to the calends of the next month. We would start on the 16th, and then we would go the 16th, the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, and the 1st, because we also need to count the date that we end on. All told, if today was July 16th, we would say that there are 17 days before the August calends, because remember, since we're past both of the fixed points for that month, we have to go to the fixed point of the next month. Now let's have some fun and turn these days into Latin. We'll start with giving the Latin for the fixed points. The calends is rendered into Latin as calendas, calendarum, only found in the plural and feminine. All of the fixed points are only found in the plural and feminine. There are no singular forms for the fixed points. The nones is rendered into Latin as nonas, nonarum, and the Ides is idus, idem. Notice how idus is fourth declension, so if you don't know your fourth declension endings, just make sure you remember them because they will come up later. Now let's get into the months. The months are adjectives, so they must agree with gender, number, and case with the fixed points, which is what they're modifying. This means that you will only be dealing with the feminine forms and only the plural forms for each one of those adjectives, since all of the fixed points are plural and feminine. Here are the months with their abbreviations underlined. They're all what we're used to with the example of March. Martius, the T is also part of the abbreviation, so it would be Mart, not just Mar. So here are the months, and I'll run through them real quick. January is Januarius autumn, February is Februarius autumn, March is Martius autumn, April is Aprilis is A, May is Maius autumn, June is Junius autumn, July is Julius autumn, August is Augustus autumn, September is September, Septembris, Septembre, October is October, Octobris, Octobre, November is November, Novembris, Novembre, and December is December, Decembris, Decembre. Since we've talked about the Latin for the months and the fixed points, let's go through the 3 tracks that you could go down when you form dates in Latin. The first track that you can go down is that your day falls on one of the fixed points. It's a day like December 1st or February 5th. It falls on either the calends, the nones, or the Ides. The second track that you could go down is that the date falls on the day before the fixed point. So it falls on the day before the nones, before the Ides, or before the calends, dates like March 14th and April 4th. The third track is any other day that's not covered by tracks 1 and 2. So it does not fall on one of the fixed points, and it does not fall on one of the days before one of those fixed points. So it would be dates like October 18th or January 3rd. Let's begin with track 1, which is when the day falls on one of the fixed point, either the nones, the calends, or the Ides. Here, all you have to do is put both the fixed point and the month into the ablative, because this is governed by ablative time when. Here are some examples. We'll start with January 1st, the calends of January. This would go into Latin as calendis Januariis. Here, January agrees with calendis in gender, number, and case, which is feminine, plural, and ablative, which is why you have the long is ending. You can abbreviate this date as Jan, as you see at the bottom. I didn't specifically talk about the abbreviations for the fixed point, but here they are, and they're pretty simple. Calends is just cal, as you see there. For the nons, it's non, N-O-N, and for the ides, it's just id, I-D, period. Now we move into a second example, April 5th, the nons of April. That would go into Latin as nonis aprilibus. If you remember, April is one of the months that is a third declension adjective, which is why there is an ibus ending. The fixed point and the month have to agree in gender, number, and case, but not in ending, which is why you have the ibus ending, because ibus, that's the ending that agrees with gender, number, and case with nonis. Below that date, you can also see the abbreviation for April 5th. Let's move on to track 2. This time, your fixed point and your month will be in the accusative, not in the ablative. Before your fixed point and your month will be the word prettier. This is translated into English as on the day before. This makes sense because we're talking about the dates that are on the day before one of the fixed points. So let's take March 14th as the example. This is the day before the Ides of March. This would be rendered into Latin as prettier idus Martias. Remember, idus is fourth declension, so the long us ending is the accusative plural for fourth declension. Martias agrees with gender, number, case with idus, which is feminine, plural, and accusative, which is why you have the long as ending. Then you have the prettier before all that, because this is on the day before one of the fixed points. Prettier is, the abbreviation for prettier is just PRID, period. Let's take 2 more examples, the first of which will be August 31st, which is the day before the calends of September. This would be prettier calendas septembres. Remember, with September and the other third declension adjectives, you have to be using the long es ending because that's the accusative plural. That's the form of the third declension adjective that will agree in gender, number, and case with calendas. That would be abbreviated as you see there. Once again, prettier is abbreviated with PRID. June 4th, which is the day before the nones of June, would be, as you see there, prettier nonas junias. Finally, we get into the third track. This is by far the most common track that you will see when you are constructing dates. The fixed point and the month will stay in the accusative. A quick note on the days, we don't like say 7 days before the nones or 10 days before the calends. We actually use Roman numerals, so make sure that you have your Roman numerals down. The last thing is the difference from track 2 to track 3 is, well, 1, we add the numerals, and 2, we replace prettier with ante diem. Let's start with our first example. May 2nd would be rendered into Latin as ante diem vi nonas maias. Here we start with the first thing that we do is we put our ante diem in. We start with the day before. Then we move into our Roman numerals. Then we move into our fixed point, then our month, which agrees with our fixed point in gender, number, and case, which is feminine, plural, and accusative. At the bottom there, you see the abbreviation for ante diem, and you see AD. And you're saying to yourself, well, I know an AD, Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. Latin 1, we know that. In the context of dates, you will never see, the Romans never used AD to mean Anno Domini in the year of our Lord. They had their own way of keeping track of years, which you may know as A.U.C, and I will get to that in a second. Let's move into our second example, December 7th. This would be ante diem vii idus decembres. As I've said earlier, if you have one of the third declension adjectives, make sure that you are not just blindly putting in AS at the end. Make sure that you use the third declension adjective endings of long ES. Our final example, September 21st, I'm sorry there, this would be ante diem vi calendas octobres. Here I want to reiterate, If you are past the nones and the ides, then the fixed point that you are going to go to is the calends for the next month. So in our case, we're past the fixed points, we're past the 13th, we're definitely past the 5th. So we have to go to the 1st of October as our next fixed point, which is the calends of October. So this would be Ante Diem, VI, Calendas Octobris, which is why we go into the next month. I've thrown a lot of information at you, so I want to make sure that you've digested it, and I want to give you a chance to apply the information that you've learned. So, take a look at these 6 dates. Change the Latin dates into more conventional Gregorian dates, and change the conventional Gregorian dates into Latin dates. I would prefer that you write the entire Latin date down. If you want to write the abbreviations below the dates, like you'll see me do for the answers, go right ahead. I just prefer you to write it out because more practice, you get more used to it. So take a second, pause the video, try and piece them together. Now that you've had a chance to take a look at them, let's start with the first one. Ante Diem XIV Calendas Aprilis. So we're going 14 days before the calends of April. So let's start with the day that we're going to, April 1st. April 1st, March 31st, March 30th, 29th, 28th, 27th, 26th, 25th, 24th, 23rd, 22nd, 21st, 20th, 19th. So that's 14 days that I just counted, which gets us back to March 19th. Now let's go to September 28th. This is past both the nones and the ides of September, so we're going to go to the calends of October. So we start with the 28th, and we go 28th, 29th, 30th, and then we're at the 1st already, because September only has 30 days. So, Ante Diem IV Calendas Octobris, or as you can see there, that's the abbreviation. Next one, Pridie Nonas Maias. Here we're going the day before the nones of May. As you remember, May is one of the Mama Jo months, so they have the later nones. So the nones will be on the 7th, so the day before the nones will be May 6th. Here, November 1st, this is the calends of November. This is one of the fixed points. Since we're on one of the fixed points, then we have it as an ablative. So this would be Calendis Novemberibus. Make sure that you have the ibus endings for the third declension adjectives, because they have to have the right endings, so make sure that you have the months memorized if you don't already. The next date is Ante Diem IV Idus Julias. Here we're going 4 days before the Ides of July. July, once again, this is one of the later months, so the Ides will be on the 15th. So we start the 15th, 14th, 13th, 12th. We are on July 12th, which is our answer here. The last date is February 9th. Here, the next fixed point will be the Ides. It's not anything irregular, so the Ides will be on the 13th. We start on the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, to the 12th, and then we're on the 13th, 5 days later. So this would be Ante Diem V Idus Februarias. As promised, here's how the Romans counted their years. They had 2 different methods. One, they would use an ablative absolute with the sentence, Collatinus et Bruto consulibus. This is saying, with Collatinus and Brutus as consul. This is the first year of the Republic, 509 BC. Collatinus and Brutus were the first 2 consuls, and then Collatinus got kicked out later because he was a Tarquin, and people in Rome didn't really like Tarquin, so then he was replaced with Publius, who later learned the agnomen Publicola. But that's another video. So it gets kind of tedious if you don't know who all of the consuls are. So luckily for us, they had their own system, which was actually a numeric system, known as A.U.C. A.U.C. stands for Ab Urbe Condita, which is from the founding of the city. Ab Urbe Condita is also the name of a book by Livy that talks about the history of Rome from, if you can guess it, from the founding of the city. Once again, as you can probably guess, this starts in 753 BC, which was when Romulus first founded Rome. So let's convert between BC and AD and A.U.C. So first, let's say that you want to go A.U.C to BC. This would be when your A.U.C is less than or equal to 753. You subtract your A.U.C year from 754 to get your BC year. So 754 minus an A.U.C year like 621 equals your BC year of 133 BC. Let's say that you want to go BC to A.U.C. You subtract your BC year from 754 to get your A.U.C year. So 754 minus 44 BC would be 710 A.U.C. You're probably asking yourself, well, why isn't it 753 BC? Because there's no year 0. It just goes year BC 1 to 1 AD. So you have to account for that 1 year shift, which is why you subtract from 754. Now let's say that you want to go A.U.C to AD. After I've made this picture, I realize that I made a mistake, and I'll point that out when I get to it. So this would be when your A.U.C is greater than 754. Here, you do, in fact, subtract 753 from your A.U.C year to get your AD year. Here's the mistake. It shouldn't be 2,529 AD, it should be 2,529 A.U.C. So take 2,529 A.U.C, subtract that by 753 to get 1776 AD. AD to A.U.C, this is really easy. All you have to do is add 753 to your AD year. This will get your A.U.C year. So let's take 2003, let's add 753 to it, and then that would be 2,756 A.U.C. Now you know how to form the years and convert between the two. I will only ask you about the A.U.C way. You do not have to worry about when Brutus and Collatinus were consul. That's too tedious. You won't see it that often. Sometimes Roman authors use it, but that's really the only place you'll see it. But here are some examples. So for these, I want you to convert from either A.U.C to one of the A.D. or B.C. or vice versa. So take a second, pause the video, try and see if you can tease it out. Great, now that you've taken a second, I'll go over them. So here, 1,171 A.U.C, this is greater than 754, so you subtract the A.U.C year by 754 to get your A.D. year. So 1,171 minus 753 is equal to 418, which would be your year 418 AD. Now we'll go 476 AD into A.U.C. Here you just add 753. So 476 plus 753 is 1,229 A.U.C. Now we get into one of the B.C. dates. Here you have to subtract the B.C. date from 754. So 754 minus 25 would be 729 A.U.C. Here, 1865 AD, once again, just add 753 to get 2,618 A.U.C. The final two are A.U.C to B.C. conversions. So we have 43 A.U.C, you take that, you subtract 754 and 43 to get 711 B.C. And finally, 753 A.U.C. Since this is equal to 753 or less than 753, you still have to subtract this from 754. So 754 minus 753 A.U.C is just a nice even 1 B.C. Now that we've had some practice with dates, let's put this all together. Let's have some practice converting dates and let's have some practice converting years. So let's take these 6 dates. I will give you a second and translate the Gregorian dates into the more Latin dates and translate the Latin dates into the Gregorian dates. As you see with my note at the bottom, convert all non-A.U.C dates, so AD or BC, into A.U.C and all A.U.C dates into its correct either BC or AD. So take a second, pause the video, try and get these translated. All right. This is a lot and it's pretty confusing, so I'll go through them one by one, make sure that you get them. So we first start with October 4th, 1436 A.U.C. We'll start with the actual day part of it first. October 4th. This is in one of the Mama Joe months, so it has one of the later nones. The nones will be on the 7th. So we start on the 4th, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. That's 4 days. So we have our Ante Diem as traditional with this track. We go Ante Diem, IV, Nonas, Octobres, and now we get into our year. Since the A.U.C. is greater than 754, all you have to do is take the A.U.C. date, subtract 753 to get your A.D. So 1436, subtract 753 to get 683 A.D. Next, we have November 22nd, 589 B.C. Once again, I'll start with the day. November 22nd, you're past the nones and the ides for that month, so you got to go to the calends of the next month. So the 22nd. We start with the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, and the 1st. Make sure with the inclusive counting, you are starting on the day that you are starting on and the day that you are going to. It is really, really tempting to leave out the date that you are going to, especially when you're going to the calends of the next month. I know because I messed this one up when I was writing this out, and thankfully there's a wonderful website that I will link to that can help you out if you want to write some dates out, check them. There's something that you can check them against. Now we'll get into the year, 589 BC. Since this is one of the BC dates, all you have to do is take 754, subtract your BC dates to get to your A.U.C. date. So 754 subtract 589 is 165 A.U.C. We'll get into our last Gregorian Latin date. So January 4th, 1789 A.D. January 4th, this is the day before the nones of January. So here we use our Pridie. So Pridie, nonas Januarias, and now we get into our year. We're going AD to A.U.C. So all you have to do is add 753. So 1789 add 753 is 2542 A.U.C., which is far off into the future. So you can say you're on a future date and just use the Roman year, and that's pretty cool, actually. So think of it, time travel. Finally, we'll move into our Latin to Gregorian conversion. We start with Ante Diem XII Calendas Maias 331 A.U.C. So here we're going to start on May 1st, the calends of May. Even though May is one of the Mama Joe months, the calends does not change. The calends will always be on the 1st. So May 1st, that's our first day that we start with. Then we go to April 30th, as April only has 30 days. So 1st, 30th, 29th, 28th, 27th, 26th, 25th, 25th, 24th, 23rd, 22nd, 21st, 20th. I counted 12 days back and I got to April 20th. Now we go A.U.C. to B.C. Since it's less than or equal to 753. We go 754 minus our A.U.C. date to get our B.C. date. So 754 minus 331 is 423 BC, which gets our entire date, April 20th, 423, BC. If you're wondering, these dates don't mean anything. I just got them off the top of my head. Now we have Nonis Iuliis, 64 BC. Here we have an ablative. This means that it's on the nones of July. July is one of the Mama Joe months, so it has a later nones. So the nones will be on the 7th, so July 7th. Here, next, all we have to do is convert the 64 BC to A.U.C. Since it's BC, we take 754, subtract 64, and you get 690 A.U.C. to get July 7th, 690 A.U.C. Our last day is Ante Diem VI Idus Septembris 276 AD. So first we're going to the Ides of September. It's on the 13th. Nothing special here. So we're counting 6 days until then. So we go 13th, 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th. That's 6 days. So September 8th. That is 6 days before the Ides of September. Now we move into our year. This is AD, so all we have to do is add 753. So 296 plus 753 is 1049 A.U.C. I think that the Roman dating system is really, really hard and really, really confusing, which is why I wanted to make this video to hopefully make it clear. If you had some problems with this, just make up some random dates and go to the website that I linked, check it against that, make sure that it's right. I know that if I give the link to this website, that I am giving you the keys to drive the car. You don't ever have to learn any of this information again, but I think it's very important to take the driver's ed, take behind the wheel, to know how to drive the car first before you jump into it. That being said, if you got all of these right, awesome job. Like I said, this is really difficult, so awesome job. If you don't worry about it. It takes practice. Keep trying. You will get it eventually. I promise. You'll think of something and it'll click. To send it on home, as they say. Instead of counting in actual days like January 5th, the Roman date system revolves around counting the number of days until a fixed point. Those fixed points are the calends, the nones, and the ides. The Latin for each one of those 6 points is next to each one of the actual English names. Days in counting are counted inclusively. So if I were to count the number of days from the 3rd until the 7th, that would be 5 days. I would start with counting with the 3rd, then the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, then I would end with the 7th since I have to count the date that I started on and data that I'm going to. In the Roman dating system, there are 3 different tracks that you can go down. Track 1 is you're on the day that's on the fixed point, and all you have to do is have the fixed point in the month in the ablative. Track 2 that you can go down is that it's the day before one of the fixed points. This is where you use Pridiae plus the accusative fixed points in month. Your final track is anything else, which is the Ante Diem plus your numerals plus your fixed points in month in the accusative. As I've said earlier, months are adjectives which agree with the fixed points in gender numbering case. And the final point is the Romans have their own year system. This is A.U.C. or Ab Urbe Condita from the founding of the city. If you want to go from A.U.C. to B.C., you go 754 minus A.U.C. equals B.C. B.C. to A.U.C., 754 minus B.C. equals A.U.C. A.U.C. to A.D., A.U.C. minus 753 equals A.D. A.D. to A.U.C., A.D. plus 753 equals A.U.C. This has been my video on the Roman date system. Like I said, I think this is really challenging, so I hope you got it. If you didn't, keep trying. I promise you will get this eventually. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.